If you feel stuck right now, it may not be a lack of effort. Your busyness may be blocking your breakthrough. When you stay locked in the same environment, in the same schedule, and the same noise every day, it becomes hard to hear the new direction God has for your life. Look at the pattern in Scripture. Moses encounters God away from Egypt's system, and Isaac goes out to meditate in the field. That's when God's next chapter starts moving in your life. But what you probably don't expect is that sometimes the breakthrough isn't more effort, it's stepping out of the noise. And I'll show you how to do that without quitting your life. If you want to change from your present circumstances, you usually have to step out of what your present circumstances keep feeding you. Because when you stay locked into the same environment, the same schedule, and the same noise every day, it becomes hard to hear the new direction God has for you. A lot of times, God encounters people when they're not in the busyness of their day-to-day lives. Not because God can't meet you at home, but because the weight of the world isn't distracting you as much. Stepping out creates space for God's voice in your life. Look at Moses. Moses didn't meet God when he was still deep in Egypt's system. He met God when he was out in the wilderness, away from the familiar. Same thing with Abraham. When God told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, it wasn't that to do this in your backyard. It was go to the mountain. And there's a pattern here. When God is doing something new, he often calls people into a new place, physically, mentally, and even spiritually, so they can actually receive it. Isaac is a powerful picture of this. Isaac didn't just stay at home and hope. In the Bible, in Genesis 24, verse 53, it says, "And Isaac went out to meditate in the field in the evening. And he lifted his eyes and looked, and there the camels were coming." That's a very powerful concept right there. He went somewhere different to seek God, a dedicated place. And while he was meditating, he lifted his eyes, and that's when he saw Rebekah. There's something special about separating yourself from the normal flow of life that makes you more sensitive to what God is doing. Here's why busyness keeps us stuck. Most people aren't stuck because God isn't speaking. They're stuck because life is loud. Work, school, errands, kids, constant tasks. On top of that, you're surrounded by the same familiar environment every day. So even if God is trying to produce something new in your life, your mind is already trained to expect the more of the same things. That's why retreats, prayer conferences, and getting away to pray can impact our life so greatly. It's not magic, it's just focus. When the distractions get removed, you hear God more clearly. God often pulls people out before he pulls them forward. Think about Moses again. Moses had compassion for God's people even when he was in Egypt. So it wasn't that he didn't care, but Egypt was still in him. That's why God took him into the wilderness for years, not just to change his location, but to renew his mindset. Because if you're weighed down by what you've been living in, you will reject what God is trying to show you in the future. The Israelites were slaves. If God talks to them about a promised land while everything around them screams slavery, most people will immediately think that's not possible and they'll reject that idea. So God often removes you from the environment that keeps preaching to you that it is impossible. Joseph is another example of this in the Bible. Joseph had a dream about the future, but that dream couldn't become real if he stayed in the comfort of his own home. He had to leave his present circumstances. And I'm not saying that the process is easy, but I'm saying that the principle is real. Sometimes the path into the promise starts with being moved out of what feels familiar. If this video is blessing you, subscribe to this channel to stay up to date when I post more videos like these. So how do we practically apply this in our life? This doesn't mean that you quit your job, disappear for 40 days, and leave all your responsibilities behind. Most people can't do that. So here's what it does mean. Become a better steward of your time, so your schedule doesn't own you. You don't have to remove all your responsibilities. You just need to stop letting the small, scattered tasks eat your entire day up. Here's a simple example. Instead of running to the grocery store 2 or 3 times a week, buy all your groceries once a week in bulk. If picking up kids eat up your afternoon every single day, consider carpooling with a friend and rotating days. Stop treating every small task like it needs its own trip, its own hour, or own mental space. The goal is simple. Tighten your day-to-day stuff so it stops draining all your attention. So by the time you hit the afternoon or evening, your mind isn't already exhausted. You have the rest of the day to seek God and grow closer to Him more and more. So there's 2 levels to apply this principle. Here's how I think about it. Level 1, You integrate God into your daily life. This is like the David as a shepherd kind of life. David still had work to do as a shepherd, but his work had space in it. So he could worship, pray, and stay aware of what God is doing, even in the busyness of taking care of sheep. Some seasons are like that. Your job is calmer, your schedule is lighter, and you have margin. That's when you should go harder spiritually, not softer. Because what you build in the calm seasons will sustain you in the busy seasons. Level 2 is when you intentionally pull away to seek God. Level 2 is when you intentionally set long periods of time to seek God dearly. This is the wilderness pattern you see all throughout Scripture. John the Baptist, Moses, Jesus. In the Bible, in Matthew chapter 4, verse 1, it says, "Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil." In the Bible, in Matthew chapter 4, verse 2, it says, "And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward he was hungry." That's level 2. Retreat time, reset time, deep focus time. You may not live there 24/7, but you should visit it on purpose. And here's a big takeaway. If you always stay locked in the same routine, it's harder to see what's next. Sometimes the breakthrough isn't more effort, it's stepping out. Stepping out of constant noise, stepping out of nonstop tasks, stepping out of the environment that keeps you preaching your past to you. And when you make space, God's voice becomes clear. Here's a recap. God often reveals new direction when you step out of the noise of your normal life. Busyness can keep you trapped in the more of the same, even when God is trying to show you something new. So you need both. Daily integration with God, that's level 1, and then level 2, intentionally pulling away and seeking God deeper and pulling away from your normal life. If you guys were blessed by this video, subscribe to this channel to stay up to date when I post more videos like this. Thank you and see you guys next time.